Welcome back to another deadline stream for FPL, this time for Gameweek 30, and the deadline is tomorrow, but as you probably well know by now, if you watched the last deadline stream, I am still on holiday for another 2 weeks or so, and that's why with this kind of time difference, it's virtually impossible for me to stream on the Saturday morning, which would be ideal, but still, we're doing it on a Friday, and maybe it's going to be more convenient for some of you, so I'm going to try to see the positives in that, and I'll be discussing my team selection, what has changed following the press conferences today. The big news, of course, with the likes of Erling Haaland and Luke Shaw. So Shaw is ruled out definitively. That's why he's got a red flag. But as for Erling Haaland, he's been training for the last few days and he is ready, according to Pep Guardiola. But ready for what? That's the question. He always speaks in riddles, so you just never know with Pep. I don't think I'd captain him if I did bring him in, but I think he will start the game, and that's something I said a few days ago as well. I'll maintain that belief too. Let's wait and see. And if I do lag or anything, let me know. I did a few tests just before coming live just to make sure, because the internet is actually way quicker than it is at home. The problem is power cuts. I'm just hoping there isn't one whilst the stream is going on. It is possible though, so if it does happen, I do apologize in advance. Let's go through your questions and comments as always, and you will see pretty much nothing has changed from my team selection video. It's all the same, but now I've made one change with the news about Luke Shaw, and I've put Sven Botman in my starting 11. A bit of a clash here. Double Newcastle defence and Ivan Toney. That's going to be a difficult game to predict. And I'm even considering starting the likes of Solly March in here as well. And I've got a few different players that I'm looking to buy over the next few weeks, and I'll discuss this in the upcoming videos. And the plan is on the Tuesday to do a deadline stream for UCL Fantasy, and if possible to record some UCL Fantasy content across the weekend. So it might get outdated very quickly, but still it will give you my general thoughts on the upcoming matchday in UCL Fantasy, this time ahead of matchday 9. But let's get straight into your questions and comments as always. Welcome to everyone, it's good to see you here. So Patrick says, hey Dylan, is it worth doing Gabriel Toney out for Ake Haaland for a -4 this week? Yes, would be the simple answer. I think it is worth it. I'm 0.1 million short to do Toney straight to Haaland. Free hit and 32 for me. Same here, I'm in the exact same boat as you, which is a bit frustrating because I think a few weeks ago when I checked, I had quite a lot left in the bank, and that's why maybe keeping Saka and selling Odegaard looks like an even worse decision right now, unless Saka does really well in Gameweek 30 and 31. But yeah, I think I would do the -4 here. It ultimately will pay off. And with Gabriel, as good as Arsenal are defensively, I don't see enough clean sheets from now until the end of the season with those tough fixtures. And Arsenal at home, they just don't keep enough clean sheets, and they always have that lapse in concentration. They're winning by 2 or 3, maybe even 4, and they concede that goal. So JNS says, hey, Dallo and Ake aren't too risky for wildcard. Want Man United and Man City defenders? I think with Man City, you always have this issue with rotation, apart from Erling Haaland, who will always start when he's fit. I think Ake is relatively safe. He will maybe be benched once or twice from now until the end of the season, but he's versatile. That's what I like about him. He can play centre-back and left-back, which boosts his chances of starting. As for Dallo, though, I'm not so sure because Wan-Bissaka in recent weeks has been the better right-back, and he could easily slot in certain games. So I think that's actually the riskier of the two picks. And also with Luke Shaw, obviously we've got the confirmation he's out for this weekend, but I don't get the impression it's going to be a long-term injury. I think he'll be back by Gameweek 31 or by the time we get to the FA Cup semi-finals. But let's wait and see, of course, in that regard. And Lisandro Martinez would be a safer pick, per se, but I can understand why you're going for Dallo, but I'm a bit unsure about him and his minutes. I think Ake's fine, though. Welcome, JP. How's Argentina? Surely Brighton have more goals in them than United, mainly Rashford, McAllister 10 or Fernandes. Pros or cons? Yeah, Argentina's pretty good. It's sunny every single day here. It's literally 27 degrees right now, and it's autumn. So this is pretty much hotter than the British summer, which is quite crazy to say the least. As for Brighton scoring more than United, that is possible. United have only scored 1 goal since winning the Carabao Cup, and Brighton are facing a dysfunctional Spurs side who have a pretty poor and vulnerable defence. So that is, makes sense. I think the pros and cons with McAllister versus Fernandes is that McAllister's playing more advanced, and with Fernandes, I think next week is when we'll start to see the best of him because Eriksen and Casemiro could be back in the starting 11, which will push Fernandes further forward. But this week, you still have Eriksen maybe being in the squad, but that doesn't mean he's going to start the game. Casemiro is still suspended. So as a result, I think McAllister's advanced positioning could be really good. And I saw a stat, I don't know the exact figure, but Spurs concede an abnormal number of chances from the centre, and that could really benefit the likes of Ferguson and McAllister. And also with McAllister, he's on penalties, which Bruno is as well, to be fair, but Bruno also competes sometimes with Rashford. There was one occasion earlier this season in the FA Cup where Rashford took a penalty against Everton whilst Bruno Fernandes was on the pitch. And I think until Fernandes plays a bit further forward, it's just going to be more of a progressive role for him in terms of distributing the ball from deep. And as a result, McAllister could be the more, I say, better pick for Gameweek 30, arguably on paper. But the thing is, when you look at on the other side of the spectrum, Everton away from home typically are very poor. And despite how poor Spurs have been this season, they're still relatively tough to beat in their stadium. So it kind of goes both ways, really. And if it were me, I think I'd still start Fernandes. But honestly, I think McAllister's a better option than March this week, despite the fact that I prefer March in the grand scheme of things. Thoughts on starting benching Isak? Yeah, it was a big surprise to see him benched against West Ham. I think Wilson has a decent record against the Hammers, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, it ended up being the right decision. Isak came on and scored a great goal. I think with Isak, I would bench him in most cases, but it depends who you're starting him, or starting over him, should I say. And actually in my wildcard video, and this was before, he was benched against West Ham, I actually had Isak on the bench. So I think my initial gut feeling would be to bench him. Wei-Seng, I'll try to check your team on Discord later, when I have time, but I think during the stream would be a bit awkward. So I'll try to do it as soon as the stream is done. If not, it'll probably be by tonight in Argentina. I'm not sure what time it will be where you're at, maybe the morning. But yeah, I'll try to do that ASAP. So if anyone else has some questions or comments you want to put forward on Discord and you want a bit more advanced analysis through text, I can do that as well over the next few days. Welcome, John. Good to see you. And I do realize I'm going to be very far behind now, so I'm going to whiz through these. So took Shaw out for Moreno. I think that's fair enough, Manish. Shaw isn't a priority sell for me, though. And if you have someone like Botman or a Stupinian even to come off the bench, I think that's fine as well. How do you think Lampard affects Chelsea assets? That's a really good question. You mentioned a really good point there, JP. He didn't like Kepa. That could be a big concern going forwards. I think it will be a clean slate, though. I think Lampard talked about in his press conference the fact that everyone has a new opportunity under him. It might not be the case for the likes of Kepa, who's got a bit of a history with Lampard, but I think Kepa will have an opportunity to prove himself in training, and Mendy's level has dropped from a few years ago when Lampard was the manager. I might change formation, thus reducing clean sheets and win-back appeal. I agree, and I'm actually open to selling Chilwell anyway, around Gameweek 33, so things haven't changed too much for me. Even in Gameweek 31, actually, I'm considering selling Chilwell, despite some good fixtures around Gameweek 34 and 35. I agree with you. I think Chelsea will switch to a back four. They'll get fewer clean sheets, but score more goals. That's kind of my initial reaction and prediction for Chelsea. And I think it's kind of it's dividing opinion, I think, in terms of the appointment of Lampard, but it does make sense for, this season. It does damage their chances in the Champions League, though. I think they're kind of writing off the entire season. They're facing Madrid anyway in the Champions League. But yeah, in the Premier League, I agree with you. I think fewer clean sheets, the wing-back appeal reduces, and I think they'll score more goals in general. Why are you streaming before the deadline? Because of the time difference, I'm afraid. So I'm 4 hours behind the UK. So if I were to stream at the usual Saturday morning time, it'd be 5 a.m. here. It just doesn't make sense, to be quite frank. Best Shaw replacement? I'd actually look at Man City defender. I know a lot of you in the comment section of some polls I put out were a bit, against that. But I genuinely think a Man City defender could be really good. It's just about nailing that right one, and there could be rotation from time to time. That's the big problem. But Ruben Dias, Stones, Ake, I do like the look of. I'd go for one of those three potentially. If not, you're looking at Estupinian, who's a really good option long term, despite some tough games in 30 and 31. And you also have a few others like Chilwell still, although I'm a bit less keen on him right now. And you could even go a bit different and go for a Tyrone Mings despite some tough fixtures. Villa have been very impressive recently, and I'm starting to change my mind about them a little bit more. Ferro says, which two to start out of these three? Barnes, Maddison and Toney. Good question. Barnes has been in better form than Maddison, so you'd probably give him the edge. He's also lower ownership. But with Toney, he's someone I'd be very uncomfortable to bench, even against Newcastle. So I'd start Toney. I think I'd still go for Maddison, but Barnes is in great form recently, at least much better than Maddison. How will you tackle having so many players that blank in matchday 32? It's not a problem for me. I've got the free hit. If I didn't have the free hit, I'd be much more careful with my transfers, and I wouldn't have got in triple United. Would you start Martinelli ahead of Toney? Martinelli could do really well against Trent. We all know this, but I think I'd still start Toney. I think he has a high ceiling, and even though Arsenal could be the marginal favourites against Liverpool, that record against Anfield, Anfield should I say, is still very poor, and I'd be very concerned and cautious about it. And Liverpool, yeah, they've been poor this season, but only one loss at Anfield in the Premier League campaign, and they've got the third best home record, so I'd be very wary about that. Start Estupinian or Botman? I think I'd go for Botman. Estupinian is facing Tottenham, and you know how Tottenham can be. A Jekyll and Hyde team, they can be absolutely awful and toothless up front, but I still expect Spurs to score. Although I do give Brighton the edge in terms of the victory. Newcastle fan, Howell loves Wilson. Now he's found his form, he'll bench Isak 100%. Yeah, you're right. Even when Wilson was off form and people were clamouring for Isak to start, including the Carabao Cup final, Wilson just continued to start. And I think, there could be a situation at some stage, maybe not this season, but in the following campaign, where both of them start together. I just don't see that being the case right now. Newcastle found that winning formula in recent games. And, why change something that isn't broke? So I do understand your perspective. You obviously know more about Newcastle than me, and you might be right. It's a bit of a shame with Isak because if he can start games consistently, stay injury-free, he's a fantastic option. Let's see what else we have. By the way, any spamming, I'm sorry, but I'm going to just put you on timeout or ban just to kind of mitigate things. I got loads in the bank. Thoughts on Tony to Haaland for a -4. I think it's worth it. The problem is there is still a chance of Haaland being benched, so it could backfire this week, and we know how good Tony is, despite some tough fixtures, so to speak, over the next 3. I think he could do well in all of them. I think it's worth it, though, as a -4 hit. Haaland obviously doubles in 34. If you have the free hit to use in 32, then fair enough. If you don't, then be very careful because you could end up in a situation where you have not enough players and you don't have enough quality players in Blank Gameweek 32. Hey Dylan, which defender would be best from Gameweek 30 to 33 as I'm not free hitting in 32, thinking of Mings or Robertson? I'd give Robertson the edge despite how poor Liverpool are. That fixture in 32 against Forest is really good. And I also expect maybe one other clean sheet in that time period or an attack in return for the likes of Robertson, even Van Dijk or Trent. So I'd give the edge to Robertson, but you have to say certainly in the last few weeks, Mings and Aston Villa have been far better options in general. Yeah, I'm on holiday, K-Mag. Bench 1, Maddison, Tony Mitoma. Oddly enough, I'd actually consider benching Maddison, which does seem crazy. He's facing Bournemouth, but you're looking at form, you're looking at how good these teams have been in recent weeks and over the course of the season. I think Maddison would be the one to bench. Mings in for sure. I think that could work out really well in Gameweek 30, but not necessarily afterwards in the long term. And you might end up bringing Shaw back in time for Gameweek 34. But look, it's not a bad transfer for this week, and sometimes you can't ignore the points or the possibilities of points in front of you. Bring in Haaland for Tony and play Estupinian for sure. Yeah, I think that's completely fine. I'd probably do that in your situation. And Estupinian could keep a clean sheet against Tottenham. I wouldn't rule it out. I think Spurs will score, but even then, Estupinian could get something, an assist. And I would expect Brighton to put Spurs to the sword. Although you could say, history does play a part too. Odegaard or Ferguson to start? I'd give Odegaard the edge there. Not by much, but I'd probably go for him. Start Odegaard or March. And Estupinian or Henry. It's a tough one. I think I'd go for March, although it's a very close call. And as for Estupinian or Henry, Estupinian is probably the one I'd give the edge to. And by the way, in terms of Ashish and your question, like I said earlier in this video, one stat that might point or make you lean towards Ferguson over Odegaard is the fact that Brighton, or should I say Spurs, have conceded a lot of chances through the centre, and that could really benefit Ferguson, who has been in absolute great form for both club and country recently. Shaw to Stones or keep him? I like Stones for the long term, but I'd probably keep Shaw, especially if you have someone like even Ben Mee on the bench or Botman, Estupinian as well. Who to start, March or Mitoma? I'd go for Mitoma. I think he's just been so consistent since the World Cup. And with March, he's been so frustrating. Now, it could go the other way this time round. It's a 50-50 call almost, but I give Mitoma the edge. Thoughts on Jesus and Maddison? Jesus could become a really good option, especially if you've got Isak and you're concerned about his minutes going forward, or you were looking to get Isak in and now you want another striker. I think Jesus could be fine. The problem is the fixtures, and Arsenal have 4 quality attackers. Let's not forget Saka is now fit and available, ready to start according to Arteta. So who's going to drop out? Is it going to be Trossard, Gabriel Jesus or Martinelli? I'd probably say Jesus or Trossard are the most likely to drop out. And if I had to pick one right now, I think Trossard could be on the bench, but still Jesus could be a bit of a doubt. As for Maddison, he's 2 yellow cards away from suspension. He's in poor form. So I'm not so sure if I'd look to buy him in right now or if he'd be a priority for me. Start Mings or Ben White? Mings, for sure. I don't think Arsenal keep a clean sheet. And as for Aston Villa, there's not many better fixtures than Nottingham Forest at home. Do you think Villa defensive assets can keep their returns coming? Certainly in Gameweek 30. Beyond that, I think it will start to drop. That's not to say they can't keep a clean sheet from game weeks 31 to 38, but I think the volume and the frequency of clean sheets will drop. Hi Dylan, I'm currently having a headache about who to bench between Solanke or Alvarez, who have fantastic games. The thing with Alvarez is that he could be benched despite how important he's been in recent weeks. I think I'd start Alvarez just in the case that he does start, but Solanke is the safer option. And also he's facing Leicester, who are a very poor defence. So I don't think you can go on with either, but assuming both start, I'd give Alvarez the edge there. Best replacement for Andreas Pereira. I'm not sure what price you're looking at exactly, because if it's something a bit similar, then I'm not so sure I'd go for that. I'd look to upgrade if anything. So let me know your situation so I can give you an in-depth answer. Could you go for a roughish wildcard team because your video got kind of outdated? Yeah, potentially. I don't think there'd be much I'd change, really. What I would consider is downgrading Isak to a cheaper forward and then upgrading the midfield and going to Bruno Fernandes there as well. So maybe Maddison up to Bruno Fernandes. I don't think much will change from that wildcard team, to be honest, even if it does seem like a lot has been outdated. Instead of Luke Shaw, I'd probably go for a Man City defender like John Stones. No, I don't think so, as I discussed in my team selection video, so be sure to check that out. The plan is to probably roll. I think that's what I'm going to look to do. Grealish in for Odegaard. Grealish has been fantastic. There's no doubt about it. But as an FPL option, I still have my doubts. And I think Odegaard is still a marginally better FPL option. The thing with Grealish, though, is that he has doubles along the way. Is he going to start absolutely every single game? I think he'll start most, but not all. Fernandes and Tony out for Grealish and Haaland for a -4. I don't think so. I like Haaland. I think that transfer makes sense, but to do Fernandes to Grealish, I don't think it's worth it. I think Fernandes is a significantly better option from now until the end of the season compared to Grealish. I wouldn't do that. And once Casemiro and Eriksen are back next week, I think you'll regret it selling Fernandes, in my opinion. Henry, Estupiñán, White start too. Probably Henry and Estupiñán. I think White is the least likely to keep a clean sheet despite Arsenal's great away record and only conceding 9 goals. White kept over Raya. Just I think it's a better fixture. I think Newcastle will score, and whilst Chelsea have appointed Lampard, which obviously for several reasons that could bode pretty poorly for Kepa Arrizabalaga, I'd still give him the edge. You know, he's either starting or not starting, unless something crazy happens with Mendy. So yeah, that's why I'm going for Kepa. That was my thinking all week long. I think I'm going to stick to it. Best striker replacement for the coming game week, Isak, Tony, Watkins. Watkins would be my favourite of the lot, for sure. Start Mings or Estupiñán? Mings. Hi Dylan, will you bring in Haaland? Not this week. The plan is to potentially bring him in Game Week 31. So what I could do is downgrade Shaw on Game Week 31 to Estupiñán, bench Estupiñán there as well, and start Haaland, of course, and potentially captain him against Leicester. But this week, I'd have to take a hit to get rid of him, unless I do Kane to Haaland, which I don't want to do. So I think I'm going to wait another week for him. Watkins or Tony? I'd go for Watkins. With Tony, as good as he is, and over the course of the season, he's definitely been the better asset. My problem with him is the yellow card. Start Mings or Ben White, I'd go for Tyrone Mings. Yeah, Haaland, I'm not getting in. Captain Rashford or Watkins. I have heavily considered Watkins, as I discussed in my team selection video, but I think I'm going to go for Rashford. I'm going to talk about that very soon. I'm going to show a stats comparison between Rashford and Haaland, the two best captaincy options in my opinion for Game Week 30, but I think Watkins is probably third. March still worth holding, or swap to Mitoma McAllister in the future? I still think it's worth holding. However, Mitoma will be my favourite bright midfielder, and he has been for several weeks and months now. Play 2 between March, Mitoma and Saka. Probably Mitoma and Saka, and that's what I'm doing right now. Tarkowski to Moreno, or Fernandes to KDB, or Havertz to Watkins. Havertz to Watkins is the best one in my opinion. Best replacement for Andreas Pereira with 5 million in the bank. With 5 million in the bank. I do like Barnes. I'm not sure if I'd go for him necessarily. Quite a tricky one, I think, for you. Maybe a Leicester midfielder, so Maddison or Barnes, or maybe Jarrod Bowen. Probably one of those three, I'd say. Captain Haaland. If you think he's going to start, then yes. But if you have any doubts about him starting, I'd just go to Rashford and go for something safer. If I had both, I think I'd still captain Rashford, but it's a close call. Shaw to Dalot, not for me. I think Shaw will be back very soon, probably by Game Week 31 or the FA Cup semi-finals in 32. Would you do Henry to Mings for a -4? No, I wouldn't do that. Didn't notice, awesome score, mate. 128 for a bench boost. Thank you, Dave. That's a really good score as well. And honestly, not much difference. You know, I technically got 134 with the -4 hit taken into account. But yeah, some great scores this week on the bench boost, and it was a decent green arrow. So I was quite happy with the week. There's a few things that maybe I was a bit frustrated by, but overall, very positive week. Thank you, Neil, for the super chat. I very much appreciate it. Shame that the message doesn't fit on terms of the screen there, but I'll read it out. Hey Dylan, major benching dilemma this week. Need to bench one of McAllister, Madison, and Tony, plus bench one of Estupinian, Sinchenko, and Botman. Thanks for your help and good luck this week. Good luck to you as well, and thank you very much for the super chat and the question. In terms of the benching dilemma, I think I would bench either McAllister or Madison, and if I had to pick one, I think I'd still bench McAllister. That could definitely backfire, by the way, because as I said earlier, Spurs concede a lot of chances down the middle, which can bode well for McAllister and Ferguson, but I still think I'd bench McAllister from those three, although I'm very, conflicted about that. And bench one of Estupinian, Sinchenko or Botman. I'd probably bench Sinchenko. He's the least likely to keep a clean sheet. Arsenal's record at Anfield is awful. Since 2012, I think it's been since they've won a Premier League game. So yeah, I think I'd bench Sinchenko and McAllister. But with the McAllister one, if you decide to start him because you really want to, have that Brighton asset in your team, that's fair enough. I'd probably bench Madison in that case. But with Sinchenko, I'm more optimistic and confident about that benching. The McAllister one could definitely backfire. Thank you for that. Let me know if you have a different opinion. And I'm going to read out the other super chat here. Let me just get it up. That'd be great. Yeah, I think you might have sent it twice. If you did, then I appreciate that, but you didn't have to, mate. But yeah, that is all done. If you have any other questions, then let me know. Draw out for Martinez to fund Tony to Haaland. I think that makes sense, and it is a good transfer. Martinez got full bonus points against Brentford. I don't expect that to be the case in many games from now until the end of the season, and I think Shaw will be back fairly soon, but it is worth it. Let me put it that way. McAllister, Matoma, Saka, bench one. Probably McAllister, but like I said, that stat about Spurs, that might point you towards starting McAllister, which is fair enough. Do you back Tony scoring this week? I think he will. I mean, it's a tough one with Tony because I've got double Newcastle defence too. My hope is that either Newcastle keep a clean sheet or if Brentford score, it's Ivan Tony and he gets maximum bonus points. But with Tony, he's just a player that I don't want to bench. A bit similar to Harry Kane, just so consistent. I don't think I'd want to bench him, even when he's facing a tough opponent there. Bench one, we've covered. I'd probably bench Madison from those three. Sudindra says, sell Havertz, Isak to Haaland, planning to take a -4. Also to sell me to any defender who has good fixtures till Gameweek 33 because I'm planning to free hit in 34. If keep Isak, start him or March. Because of my doubts about Isak starting or not, and with Wilson scoring twice, of course, against West Ham, I'd probably... I'd sell Havertz. Let me put it that way. I'd still sell Havertz, keep Isak, but you could bench Isak and start March, basically, Sudindra. In terms of me, who to sell, and a defender from now until Gameweek 33, I mean, it's a tough one. You're not free hitting in 32, which is another thing to consider. I'd consider a Liverpool defender, so Trent, Robertson or Van Dijk. But if not, maybe I'd go for a Tyrone Mings. I only expect 1, maybe 2 clean sheets in that time period, but that could be enough for you, and it could do the job for you. So, yeah, one of those two, I'd say. Trippier, Shaw, Chilwell, White, Estupinian. Which three to start? Chilwell. Shaw's injured, by the way. He's not going to play this weekend, so it'd be Trippier, Chilwell, and probably Estupinian. Who are you going to captain? Probably Rashford. But if I were to go different, it's going to be Watkins. I may actually change the vice captaincy. Have I changed it? Yeah, for some reason... Well, Fernandes is my vice captain. What happened there? Watkins is going to be my vice captain, I think, and Rashford captain. So one of those two will be my captain. At the moment, the most likely scenario will be Rashford. Don't have enough money for Haaland, so I was thinking to sell Chilwell to a 4.5 million defender. Yep, I'm looking to do something similar in Gameweek 31. The one I look to go for is probably Stupinian if you don't have him already. Even though you might bench him in 31, he's got great fixtures, 33, 34. If you don't have the free in 32 though, then I'd probably look towards an Aston Villa defender or even a Liverpool defender like Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk or Tyrone Mings in that case. Yeah, I think Watkins is a good captain this week. The problem with him, and the reason why I'm not captaining him right now, is the fact that he doesn't have enough double-digit returns. I think this could be, one of the few he gets this season because he's facing Nottingham Forest at home. They concede so many goals on their travels, and Nottingham Forest have the worst away record. And with Villa's form, Ollie Watkins, his goal-scoring prowess, you'd probably back him to get a good haul, but it might just be 8 or 9 points. With the likes of Rashford and Haaland, they're more likely to give you 10-plus points, of course. Mings in for sure, or play Stupinian and roll my transfer. I'd play Stupinian. Mings in I'd pay off, I think, this week. It might not in game weeks 31, 32, 33 per se, although I'd probably say, there's still a chance of one more clean sheet in that time frame. Do you see Salah Hall this week? I think he'll score. I'm an Arsenal fan, so maybe I'm naturally pessimistic when it comes to the Gunners. Arsenal have been great this season. They've got a good chance of getting a victory for the first time in, 11 years at Anfield, but I still think Salah will haul. Hi Dylan, I got 157 points. That's insane, by the way. What advice can you give me to keep, going for me now I'm at 700k? Well, the main advice, I think, is to keep playing your game. And if you have, certain ideas, such as Barnes over Maddison or captaining Watkins, go for it. Go for what you think is the best for your team situation. And even if there might be a clamour to free in 34, but you think it's best to free in 32, just ignore the noise outside and play your own game. Because sometimes when, there's kind of a herd mentality, people always do the same thing, you miss an opportunity to gain something over your rivals. Of course, it can go the other way, but I think the main thing for you is to keep playing your game. If you think, I don't want to captain Rashford, it's a bit too template or whatever, but you have some differentials in your team anyway, that's already enough, and you just have to keep playing your game and going for what you think is best for your situation. Yeah, I can do that in a little bit, although I'd like to discuss that in more detail in the team selection video, but I've got some decent plans. It's not concrete, set in stone, but I've got some different plans and I'm open-minded about the future. In Game Week 31, I'd probably use 2 free transfers if I decide to roll the transfer this week. Starting Stupinian, White or Botman? From those 3, I'd go for Botman. Are you bringing in Haaland? Probably in Game Week 31. So let's go through some different screens, actually, since we're getting some questions now about, some different stuff. Let me just adjust that here. All right, so let's now go to the fixture ticker. So Liverpool are now top, and that's why a lot of Liverpool assets are becoming more and more popular. They've got a double in 34. They feature in 32 with a plum fixture against Nottingham Forest at home. And despite facing the likes of Arsenal at home, it's still not marked too difficult on the FDR here. On Fantasy Football Hub, you've got Fulham, Man City, West Ham, Brighton also making up the top 5. If we look now at the bottom, you've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Everton, Southampton and Nottingham Forest in the bottom 5. Chelsea mainly because they blank in 32, but Arsenal, despite featuring in 32 with a really good fixture there against Southampton at home, they've got some really tough fixtures now. Liverpool away, Man City away, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, and even after this period, towards the end of the season, they've got Brighton at home as well. So, yeah, the tide is kind of changing. We can start to trim down our Arsenal assets, you could say, but I'd still recommend having 1, maybe 2 Arsenal players. I still think it's worth it. In terms of predicted points, this could help you with your captaincy and maybe in terms of starting one player over the other. Rashford, Fernandes, Maddison make up the top 3 with Ollie Watkins and Harry Kane also comprising the top 5. You've got Harvey Barnes, Mahrez, Haaland, Salah and Gundogan also completing the top 10. So yeah, Mahrez quite high up there. Not so sure if he's going to even start, but if he does, yeah, why not? Why could he not haul? And yeah, I think Rashford, Fernandes, Maddison, that's a pretty good list. I think Rashford at top does make sense. And I think if Haaland didn't have that flag, he'd be much higher on this list as well. Probably top, even over Marcus Rashford. Then when we go to the FPL stats page, so fplstatistics.co.uk, in terms of price rises, most of the transfer activity will be tomorrow, so don't expect too much to happen today. But Mings, Watkins, Trippier could eventually go up. If not today, then probably tomorrow. And you've got some players there going down like Darwin Nunez, Odegaard, and Iheanacho. So the only good thing about me selling Odegaard really so far is the fact that he's going down in price, and I've saved a little bit of team value in that way. Now let's go to a stats comparison with Haaland versus Rashford, probably the 2 best captains this week along with Watkins, and this is since the World Cup in Game Week 17. So Rashford has an extra fixture, so that does maybe deviate things a little bit, but Rashford has 1 more goal, 1 less assist, but pretty much the same goal contributions for both of them. Remember, the midfielders obviously kind of benefited more, or they benefit more, should I say, than a striker does in terms of scoring goals and the bonus points algorithm, getting an extra point for scoring a goal and the clean sheet points. And look at the XG, quite similar, although Haaland does take the cake. He also has a better expected assists, big chances, both of them really impressive, but Haaland also has 8 more big chances, 2 big chances created as well with Rashford 0. But yeah, both of them are great options this week. My opinion of Haaland is that he will start, probably get 60-70 minutes, and then come off ready for Bayern Munich. But I have seen a lot of people online saying they think he's going to be benched, then come on for 20-30 minutes. I disagree, but they could be right and I could be wrong. I have seen some predicted lineups as well where Haaland does start. Let me know in the live chat what you think. But as I said, I think Haaland will start. but I still give Rashford the edge in terms of the captaincy. And in terms of the FPL.team, which I always go to, it's a really good website to visualize future game weeks. What I could do in Game Week 31, for example, after rolling in Game Week 30, is to make 2 free transfers, Haaland in for Ivan Toney, and the second transfer would be Chilwell downgraded to Estupinian, assuming Shaw is back, by the way, in time and fit to play in Game Week 31. I could go for something like this. Then in Game Week 32, I can free hit. We can talk about the best free hit team when we get closer to that deadline. By Game Week 32, I'll be back in the UK from my holiday. In Game Week 33 as well, I can start to be a bit more open-minded and start to make a few other changes as well. As you can see, Saka is currently on my bench in Game Week 33, but I'm open to selling him around that time frame. But we'll talk more about this in future team selection videos. There's no reason to really talk about that right now, but one possibility for me is to roll now in 30 and use 2 free transfers in 31 to bring Haaland back in and potentially captain him against Leicester at home. Let's now go back to my team for Game Week 30 with the news of Luke Shaw being benched. He is now on my bench, of course. Welcome, Eduardinho. Is Haaland essential this week? Look, with Haaland, if he starts, there's always a chance that he could produce a mega haul. We all know this. What I would say is that most of his big hauls, his hat-tricks and double-digit returns have come in home matches, and Southampton have been a bit of a thorn in Man City's side in recent seasons. They even beat them this year in the Carabao Cup 1-0 with Nathan Jones, of all people. But yeah, I think it is worth gambling on Watkins. I wouldn't call Rashford a gamble, but it's worth going against Haaland this week, in my opinion. We all know it can backfire, but I'd say Haaland is more essential in Game Week 31 and also after blank Game Week 32. Bench 1, from those 4, I'd probably bench Nunez. I think he could do really well, especially if Holding starts, but I would probably back the other 3. Start 1 of McAllister, March, Tony or Saka. From those 4, I think I'd start Tony. Yeah, I might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I'd probably go for Tony. What time is it in Argentina now? It's 4:02. It's 4:02, so in the UK it'd be 8:02. It's a 4-hour difference. And actually, the day I travelled is when the clocks went forward, I think, in the UK. So there was a time difference as well. It used to be 3 hours, now it's 4. Free hit in 32 or 34. There are some arguments to free in 34. It might make sense for your team, but I would free hit in 32 for most people. Tony price drop soon. Also, Haaland is no longer flagged. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I think in terms of the algorithm, though, that I showed you, I think it hasn't taken that into account, basically, in terms of Haaland not being flagged, or it might predict him to get fewer minutes than maybe I do, for example. Tony price drop soon. I think it's possible. Yeah, I think tomorrow he'd probably go down in price, really. I think it's possible. Is Maddison injured? He did pick up an injury in Game Week 29, but I think he'll be fine. It doesn't seem too serious. Man City have more goals than them over Man United. Yeah, I mean, Man City always have more goals than Man United. Not to be disrespectful, but I think Man United have scored, just 40 goals in the Premier League this season. Man City have scored the most, with around 71. So yeah, Man City always score more goals than Man United. The thing is, Rashford is a talismanic figure, just like Haaland is for Man City, but Rashford kind of hogs all the bonus points and the chances for them. Hello, Dylan. Who would you sell for Haaland between Havertz and Tony? Havertz. Despite Tony's kind of risk, I'd sell Havertz, no doubt about it. Hey, Dylan, would you do Shaw to Chilwell for free? No, I don't think I would. Maybe if Conte was appointed or a manager that really prioritizes win-backs like Thomas Tuchel, then maybe I would. But I'd be very concerned about Chelsea for several reasons. So with Chilwell, we've got Real Madrid coming up soon in the Champions League. There could be rotation there to manage, to prevent any injuries because he's fairly injury-prone. They could go to a back 4, and Lampard teams aren't known for being resilient defensively. There are a few exceptions, of course, and his time as Everton and Chelsea, but yeah, I think Chelsea have more of an attacking approach, which could benefit Chilwell's attacking returns, but I'd fear for Chelsea's defence, I'd say. Is Gakpo a good pick versus Arsenal? I don't think it's a bad pick. Do I think it's a great pick or a good pick? Not necessarily. I think there are better choices this week, but he could haul, of course. Liverpool are great at Anfield. We saw what they did against Man United recently, and they've only lost against Leeds so far this season. Best Man City asset for this game besides Haaland? I'd say a defender like John Stones or Ruben Dias. Probably one of those two. De Bruyne, of course, can always haul, but I'd go for one of those two. United is nothing without Casemiro, and they're playing early kickoffs, so no way on Captain Rashford. That's fair. And also never back the early kickoff. That is true. That is true. Now that you put it that way, early kickoff, Oh, that Gandhi meme is just all over it. And now, yeah, that is true. And I have, considered other possibilities like Watkins, for example. And if I had Haaland, I'd probably consider captaining him as well. But despite all of that, I think Rashford still has a great chance of falling here against Everton. Remember the last time he played against them in the FA Cup, he did really well. I think he scored a brace, including a penalty. But yeah, United are a different, team without Casemiro. But look, they can still get results without him. And I think it also is to do with the injuries of Eriksen, who's really important in how United progress the ball from the midfield. Start Stupinian or White, I'd go for Stupinian. I meant bench one of McAllister, March, Tony Osaka. No worries. I'd bench March from those four. Yeah, I'm probably rolling. That is the plan right now, as I discussed in my team selection video. Odegaard to March, Tony to Haaland, -4 versus Kane to Haaland. Probably Odegaard to March and Tony to Haaland. I think that's the better move long term. Maddison fit? I believe so. I can't tell you, with conviction or confidence. And I'm actually not aware of the latest comments by Brendan Rodgers. I'll have a quick check here and see what he said about James Maddison, but I think he's fine. I don't think it's a big issue with him. Probably just a little knock. My guess would be he's fine. Don't hold me to that. It's just my opinion. Do you like the fact that your captain's going to play first? No. That's actually something I haven't thought about. I actually don't. The early kickoff, even Haaland earlier this season, it might have been against Brentford, if I'm not mistaken. I captained him there, and it didn't, go well. Whenever I've captained someone in the early kickoff, they've always blanked. Do you think Tony to Haaland is worth a hit? Yes, I think it is worth a hit. Tony's a great option, though, but he could be suspended very soon, even as soon as Gameweek 31, he could be unavailable. I don't have enough on wildcard for Salah, Bruno, Haaland, and two 7.5 million-ish forwards. What would you sacrifice? Good question. If you don't have the free hit, Finlay, then I would sacrifice Bruno right now. But you'd probably want him in Gameweek 33, 34. So yeah, probably Bruno is the player I'd sacrifice if you don't have the free hit in 32. If you do have the free hit, then I'd probably sacrifice Salah, and it gives you even more money in the bank to upgrade other areas. Is Kevin a good punt this week? Yes, he is always a good punt. He's got that high ceiling, but I can't help but feel he's been a bit inconsistent this season, especially since the World Cup. Who do I play, Bruno Fernandes or March? I'd probably go for Bruno, but there are some arguments to go for a Brian midfielder instead. Bench one of Salah, Isak, Mitoma or March? Probably Isak. It's between him and March, I think. Bench one of Saka, Martinelli, Tony and March? Probably March. Ferguson on Bruno as he's playing DM? I'd still go for Bruno, but that's just my personal opinion. I'll consider Mudryk in the future. You saw how good is Pulisic under him. Lampard is my all-time favourite player. Nothing can be worse than Potterball. Look, with Graham Potter, obviously he did flop at Chelsea, and I actually said to some friends of mine, because Potter was always kind of labelled as a top 5 coach in the Premier League, and I think he's a good coach, but I thought he could flop at Chelsea because it just didn't seem like a fit. I don't think Potter ball necessarily is bad. I think he needed time to get his own players, to develop his own style of play. I don't think he got either the time nor the backing. And I know you might be thinking, mate, he just spent 200, 300 million in January. I don't think those were his players. You can kind of see from Mudryk, for example, 9 million splashed out on him. And most of the time he's kind of barely making the bench and he hasn't really hit the ground running so far. So I think with Potter, he's been a bit hard done by. And he never should have gone Chelsea. Obviously, it's easy to say that right now. But even back then, and I even said this with Enzo when he went to Chelsea as well, I think it would have been better for him to stay at Brighton, personally. Yeah, Brendan Rodgers was sacked, that is true. And same with Graham Potter. A lot has changed in the last week. We even got 2 managerial sackings in a day, after all. But yeah, with Leicester, I still would fear the worst with them. They even still lost the game without Brendan Rodgers. Haaland, Maddison, Odegaard, Mitoma, Saka, Tony, bench 1. From those that you mentioned, I'd probably bench Odegaard. Either Kane to Haaland or Saka to McAllister and Tony to Haaland for a -4. I'd do the -4. But Kane to Haaland doesn't, it's not a bad idea, I'd say. Brendan Rodgers is on the beach now. Yeah, that's good for him. Enjoy the beach, that's what I'd say. Not every day you're on the beach, especially if you live in England. Obviously, there are beaches there, but yeah, let's not say anything more. Dylan, my man, when are you going to bring us some UCL fantasy content? I'm trying my best. I've gotten some FPL videos out in the last few days. I've done some, deadline streams. I've decided not to do reaction streams whilst I'm on holiday, but they will be back maybe by the time of Gameweek 32, 33. As for UCL fantasy, You know, when I record videos early, people complain that it's too early and that information becomes outdated. If I do it late, then yeah, no, people always complain basically, whatever I do. But the plan is to do some videos, record it over the weekend, but I have to find some time because I'm always out pretty much, or with family. So I'm going to try find a day where I can get some, you know, content recorded for UCL Fantasy, do the deadline stream on Tuesday, and that's all done for matchday 9. That is the plan. Welcome, Abraham. Hi, didn't have no free hit. Would you take a -4 from Shaw/Tony to Haaland, Stones, or Ake? Or I can wait until Game Week 31 and not take a hit and then get Kanate. I have to say, I like the Haaland Stones transfers. My problem with that is that both of those players are also blanking in Game Week 32. So what is your plan, or how is your Game Week 32 team looking like? That could be a big concern for you there, going into blank Game Week 32. It's not just about quantity, of course, but you might be missing a lot of the key assets in that game week, such as Salah, for example. So be very careful with that. I like the transfer you're proposing. I think it's worth it, but you might have to reconsider because of Game Week 32. Lampard wants to get Mudryk when he's at Everton. I actually wasn't aware of that. If that's the case, then, you know, yeah, he could be one of the beneficiaries of Lampard being the interim manager. Salah or Kevin? Salah. Maybe not this week necessarily with the fixture in mind, but Salah's the one I'd rather buy with the long term also, you know, being taken into consideration, shall I say. Shaw plus Tony to Haaland plus Moreno, or roll for next week? I'd probably roll for next week, personally, especially if it's for a hit. Kane to Haaland, or roll and start Martinelli. Start Martinelli and roll, in my opinion. Welcome, Sebastian. Good to see you. So I'm thinking of doing Tony to Haaland and Estupiñán to Ruben Diaz, because I don't think Brian will keep a clean sheet in 30, 31, or 32. They'll blank and see have a better double in 34. That's fair. I do prefer Estupiñán from Game Week 33 until the end of the season, but you're right. I think for the next 2 game weeks, you'd rather have a Man City defender. Who do you bench, Mitoma or Martinelli? I'd probably bench Martinelli, but it's a close call. I think it's a close call. We just adjust this a bit. According to this, so far, actually, I don't want to say, I don't want to jinx it. Let me know, just forget it. Tony, Bruno to Haaland, Grealish, -4 to fun move. I personally wouldn't. I like Tony to Haaland, but Bruno to Grealish, I don't think that's a good transfer. Yeah, it might pay off this week, but long-term, Bruno, I think outscores him significantly. Thank you, JP. For your streams, would you consider adding a score prediction? Your insight and reasoning is great to hear. I sometimes say them, but I do get what you mean. I'd like to maybe, at some point, add a rolling graphic where you can see my predictions, or even just an image and a screenshot of, you know, what I predicted for the week, which can give you an insight into my thoughts of what will happen in the Premier League. And we can also talk about that in the reaction stream, see how wrong or right I was on certain weeks. Yeah, that could be something to do in the future. Most likely I'll start to look to add that when I'm back from holiday rather than right now. Captain Stones? No, I will not captain Stones or any Man City player that isn't Erling Haaland. Do you think Tony's a big game player? Yeah, I think he is. He might have been fortunate on a few occasions in big games, but he can get hauls against anyone. So, in my opinion, he's just fixture-proof. Holding free hit for 34, more upside, don't you think? Depends really on your team situation, but when I'm looking at my own squad, I've already got 8 double game week players, most of the key assets I'd want, and I actually would, you know, gain a lot from free hitting in game week 32. So, not necessarily. It just depends on your team. Yeah, I'm part Argentinian. I'm really on holiday to visit family. That's basically it. Hi, Dylan. Start Estupiñán or Sinchenko. I'd go for Estupiñán. Greenia. Miss Wee says Grealish, Barnes, or Harrison. They've all been in relatively good form. This week, I think I'd give Harrison the edge, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'd give him the edge. Shaw out for Martinez to fund Tony to Haaland -4. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's worth it. Good replacement for Odegaard. Depends on your budget and who you don't have already. But I think a Brian midfielder is, you know, if you don't have a second Brian midfielder, I'd do that. If you've already got 2, I don't think I'd go for a third. So then I'd reconsider, maybe even go for a Barnes, for example. But when I'm also looking at Game Week 34 and Game Week 32, it might be tricky for you because the likes of Bowen, I'm not a big fan of. Yeah, so it just depends on your team situation. Havertz and Tony out for Haaland and Isak, or Solanke. I like Isak, but after the West Ham game, I wouldn't necessarily buy him in right now. I think Wilson will start in Game Week 31 potentially, and if he doesn't, sorry, in Game Week 30, and if Wilson doesn't start there, I think he could in Game Week 31. So that could be a concern going forwards. If you are looking for another striker, I would consider Gabriel Jesus. But from those two, I still prefer Isak. I need to sell Fernandes or Saka to manage to bring Haaland back next week. I'd rather sell Saka because Fernandes, yeah, he might, be outscored by Saka this week, but once Eriksen and Casemiro are back, I think that bodes well for Fernandes. He also has a double in 34. You think Isak and Salah will both start? Salah, yes. Isak, I'm not so sure. Thank you, Junior. Let's see what else we have. I appreciate Eduardinho. I'm trying my best. Sell Maddison for Grealish? No. I'd keep Maddison. Burnley are getting promoted tonight. Ashley Barnes is coming back to FPL. Yeah, as good as Burnley have been this season, I still don't think I'd go for any other assets currently. They're more of a wait and see. What do they do in the summer? Do they strengthen? But yeah, I don't think I'd go for any other assets right now. Without Shaw, I'm forced to play Stupinian, and I don't have Haaland. Would you take out Shaw, bring in Haaland, or roll? I mean, I think all of those plans are good, and I don't think you can go wrong either way. But if I had to pick one, it'd be to bring in Haaland. If you're not free hitting in 32, what are your replacements for Shaw? It would probably be one of, Kurt Zuma, Tyro Mings, or a Liverpool defender. Brentford versus Brighton, which team do you think is better this season and why? Good question. I think Brighton. I think they just play better football. I think literally just after their last game against Bournemouth, they've overtaken Liverpool for the third most expected goals of any team, only behind Man City and Arsenal. Obviously, XG is just one thing. It's about how many goals you score, how do you play in general, not just stats, but the stats, the eye tests. No matter what you say, I think Brighton are one of the best teams in the league. I'd say they're probably the fourth or fifth best team in the league right now, in my opinion. Wilson, Shaw to Mings, Stones for -4. I wouldn't do it. I think Shaw will be back fairly soon, and if I'm right in that, I think it's just worth keeping him and starting whoever you have, even if it's Botman or someone like that. Start Botman or Sinchenko. I'd go for Botman. Yeah, I'd just go for him. Shaw out for Martinez to fund Tony to Haaland -4. Yep, I've answered the question already. Opinion on Palace defence in following weeks. I like it for Game Week 32 when they face Everton at home. But yeah, still not too convinced despite Roy Hodgson having a really good start. Against Leicester, they were on absolute fire. They created so many chances. They had a lot of shots in general. But defensively, I'm just in general with Palace, I'd still be very wary. Game Week 32, when I'm looking to free hit, I might consider even starting Anderson. Are you watching some Argentinian football? Yes, I am. I actually went to a game literally last Friday. Yeah, so I do watch some games. I watched some Libertadores games as well, which is the Champions League in South America. So yeah, I have watched plenty of games. Best goalkeepers going forward? Tough one. I think Kepa could be one to reconsider with his history of Lampard, and also Chelsea might be even worse defensively from now on. But I like Raya still. I think it's a good option, and I'd probably say De Gea, especially with Shaw being out. Why not? Welcome, Harry. Been a while. Hope things are okay. I have a wild card and free hit left. What strategy do you recommend? That's a good question. I think, Harry, I'd wildcard in 33. Obviously, I don't know your team, so I could be wrong here. But probably wildcard 33, free hit in 32. I think that could be the play. So you kind of dead end your team to, in Game Week 31, just focus on the present, getting the most of the next 2 game weeks, free in 32, and then in Game Week 33, wildcard and maximize your Game Week 34 squad, and also the future doubles as well. I captained Maddison this week. Should I do it again? No. I like Maddison, but you can just tell, by his recent form, how Leicester are playing. It's just not worth captaining one of their players this week, in my opinion. I know they're facing Bournemouth, but I wouldn't risk it. Watkins for Darwin or Roll? I'd probably do it. I think Watkins is worth it. No doubt about it. And I think he outscores Darwin from now until the end of the season. Thank you, Bola. Salah to Haaland for a -4? No. I'd keep Salah. And also, if you don't have a free hit, bestie, you might even end up doing the reverse to get Salah back in 32. Imagine Ancelotti joining Chelsea. Yeah, he's heavily linked to Brazil right now, the national team. And Chelsea are linked to Conte, they're linked to Mourinho, but most importantly, they're linked to Nagelsmann and Luis Enrique. So I think they're going to go for one of those instead. I don't think Ancelotti will go back to Chelsea personally, but I could be wrong. What's your plan this week? Haaland in? No, the plan is to roll. And if I were to bring Haaland back in, it would be in Game Week 31. Play Matoma, Tony, Maddison in order. Probably Matoma first, Tony second, Maddison third. So pretty much the way you said it. Play Kepa, Raya, and Henry Stupinian. I'm going for Kepa, although I'm a bit worried about Chelsea. and I would go for Estupinian, I think. I still have free hit, triple captain, bench boost. When do I do it? Probably triple captain 34 on Haaland or Rashford. I would bench boost, and that's a tough one actually because the bench boost might be best for you in Game Week 34. So I'd free in 32, triple captain in maybe another game week, a smaller double game week like 36, 37, and bench boost in 34. But you could also do it the opposite way, and then, for example, triple captain in 34, and then bench boost later on. Start Sinchenko or Stupinian. I've answered this already. I'd go for Stupinian. Kane or Tony out for Haaland. Tony. Can you explain why Odegaard isn't a good option? I don't think he's a bad option. I never said he's a bad option. I just prefer other midfielders this week. It's as simple as that. Play White. Sorry, I just lost it here. Play White, Trent, or Mings in order. It'd be Mings first. Probably White second, Trent third. Thank you, Harry. Free hit in 32 is a lock, but that sounds really good. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good in your situation. And of course, you can let me know on Twitter, Instagram, the Discord server as well. Best City defender. If he can start all of these games, and that's the big question, and stay fit, Stones is my favourite. He's got 11 bonus points compared to Ruben Dias's 1. And Stones is just a really good option in general. He's a bonus points machine. He's got a bit of attacking threat from time to time. Yeah, I think Stones is my favourite, but my problem with him is how nailed on can he be. Hi Dylan, who should I start? I want 3 out of all 5. Trippier, Botman, Estupinian, Zuma, Gabriel. Probably the first 3. Yeah, I think it's between Estupinian and Zuma to start, as your third defender. But I'd definitely start Trippier and Botman, I think. I thought I bought Barnes to Gakpo. Is it good? But you bought Barnes in for Gakpo or the other way around? But I like Barnes. He's in good form recently. My problem with him is he plays for Leicester. I play Odegaard or McAllister. I think I'd go for McAllister, but it's a close call. I guess most FPL managers also have similar teams this game week, so I don't expect a great change in ranks. Guess it'll be down to captaincy choice. Yeah, I agree. And also, those who have Haaland compared to those without him, he could be a key difference as well. So I'm hoping he blanks. Best differential captains. Well, I mean, I'm not sure if Watkins is a differential necessarily, but I do like him. And I think in general, when we're looking at those who don't watch YouTube videos or aren't engaged in the FPL community, I don't think Watkins as a captain will be that heavily considered, outside of this sphere. So Watkins captain could be one. Don't think I'd go for Bruno because of the role he's playing right now, and also because United aren't scoring enough goals anyway. So you'd really just go for Rashford, if anything, and that's it. So yeah, apart from Watkins, I think the other kind of differential captain could even be Saka or an Arsenal midfielder, even a Brighton midfielder like Matoma, McAllister. I wouldn't rule them out. Salah for Maddison and Watkins for Tony -4. Yes, I like that. I'd do it. If he was 0.1 million short to make the Haaland move, would you do Havertz to Watkins and do Haaland transfer in Game Week 30 in 33? Yeah, I think so. And actually, I'm 0.1 million short of doing Tony to Haaland, and that's why I'm looking to roll. I bought Haaland in for Tony and captain him, hoping for a hat-trick. I'm hoping for the opposite, but good luck to you in general. Hope you're well, Dylan. Tony, Kane or Watkins out for Haaland. Tony. I'd sell Tony. No way, I don't like Conte that much as he's only focusing on league. He's not good in Europe. But then again, sometimes history has a big part to play. Look at Arsenal. They're good in, domestic league and the FA Cup, but they're poor in Europe. And Conte is kind of similar as a manager. Is a -4 for Haaland worth it this week? I think so. But if you're selling someone like Tony, you should be aware that he can do really well, and the -4 might not pay off, because even if Haaland outscores him, it might not be by 4 or more. Who to bench? Castagna, Trippier, Chilwell, or Diaz? Probably Castagna, because Leicester are absolutely awful defensively, so yeah, I'd start the others, and that's a really good defense, by the way, Sebastian. Top 5 managers now, in your opinion? It's going to be an element of bias, so don't cry. I'm not saying you, by the way, just in general, because there's always, going to be some doubters. Top 5 managers at the moment, in no particular order, I'd say Pep Guardiola, Scaloni, Arteta, Ancelotti, and I mean, literally a year ago we would have all said Klopp. Right now it's difficult for me to say him, but he's always in contention, there's no doubt about it. But those would be my top 4. If I had to add a 5th, yeah, I mean, Tuchel could be up there as well. I'm going to stick with Klopp. I'd stick with Klopp in the top 5, but he'd probably be 5th right now. Yeah, that'd be my top 5. I'm probably forgetting some international managers like Didier Deschamps, who's decent. Luis Enrique's a good coach, of course, out of work. Conte's a good coach. We all know this, but that'll be my top 5, I think. I go for Klopp still in the top 5. By the way, last week I got 149 points. Crazy week. Yeah, fair play. Matoma captaincy too. I did well. Only 2 blanked Saka Maddison. Yeah, imagine if you... I'm not sure if you had an Arsenal midfielder, but if you sold Saka and kept that Arsenal midfielder instead, it would have been even better. But I mean, there's no reason to complain when you get 149. Start Castagna or me? I'd go for Ben Mee, I think. It's a close call. You could argue Leicester have a better chance of a clean sheet or a better fixture on paper, but yeah, I just don't trust Leicester. Thoughts on Watkins captain? I mentioned in my team selection video, I am considering it. He's in my top 3 options this week, but the way I'd rank it is probably Rashford or Haaland first, and then Watkins third. Is Trossard nailed? No, I don't think he's nailed. He's in great form, and he scored a hat-trick at Anfield for Brighton earlier this season, so, you know, it's kind of a bit harsh, you could say, to bench him. Arsenal have so much depth in the attacking positions all of a sudden. Thank you, Genius. I might hold on to Tony until Blank Gimmick 32. If he gets no yellow in 33, I'll get Haaland. That's completely fair, to be honest. I think that's pretty good. Yeah. I might even do something similar, although I still think I'm going to sell him in 31 at the moment. Yeah, I got the free left. That's why I'm, you know, fairly optimistic and relaxed about my prospects in future weeks as well. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, Arsenal have the best defensive record away from home, and they've got the best... Sorry, oh, Jesus. And they've got the best away record, period. But Salah's Salah, and Liverpool have a great home record still, even this season. Watkins as captain, yeah, I don't mind it. The reason why I'm not going for him at the moment is because he doesn't have enough double-digit returns, which I'm looking for this week. I'd sell Havertz and keep Tony. Botman over Bruno? No, I'd start Bruno. Play Stupinian or White, says Jamie. I'd play Stupinian. Is Saka injured? No, he's fine. He's already been cleared by Arteta. He's not a problem. Start Castagna or White? I'd probably go for White. Sorry, it sounds like I'm crying. I'd probably go for White, yeah. Hi, Dylan. Bruno to KDB or Maddison to KDB? Maddison to KDB, honestly. I know Bruno's been really frustrating recently, but remember, Casemiro is back next week in Game Week 31. Eriksen could be back in the squad as early as Game Week 30. Both of them in the starting 11 in Game Week 31 bodes really well for Bruno Fernandes. What fixture would you say is better, Chilwell versus Wolves away or Mings versus Forest? Fixture is definitely Mings. Let's just put it that way. However, Chilwell is still arguably as good of an option in general because of his attacking threat, but I'd say Mings. Remove Shaw plus Tony for a -4. Depends who you're selling them for, but I'm guessing it involves Haaland. Free at 34-32. Look, I'm not sure what your team is, so for you personally, it might be best to free hit in 34. Look, I can see what you're saying there. You know, you can kind of cover 32 off with a -4 hit, but I can see Game Week 32 being a bit of a low-scoring week. So any hits you kind of take, especially, you know, for those people looking to take -8s, -12s or more, they're going to have a red arrow, most likely. Look, I think a free and 34 for you, Fadzil, could be the way to go. But I think for most people, free and 32 is the best way to go. And I think in Game Week 34, you already have a lot of these players that have a double, like these Man United assets, you know, these Brighton assets and all of that. So that kind of speaks for itself, and you don't need to free hit. I didn't buy Haaland because of Game Week 32. If Tony gets the yellow, I might think of buying him back. What do you think? Well, if you don't have a free hit to use in Game Week 32, that's reasonable. You can always delay that Haaland move to Game Week 33 and just go without him for now. I mean, I don't know, because you could argue there's an element of bias, but I genuinely think those two managers, Scaloni and Arteta, are in the top 5. That's just the way I see it. You know, the results, at least for Arteta in this year, I think maybe he's a bit less proven than Scaloni, who's been really good for the last 3 years, for example. But I'll have no shame in saying I think Scaloni's the best international manager right now. There's no doubt about it. Start Trent. Depends who you start him over. I don't think Liverpool keep a clean sheet. Haaland or Haaland versus Osimhen. I mean, look, they're both goal scorers. I don't think they're both particularly great in terms of, you know, other facets of their game. I think Haaland's better, but Osimhen is quite close. I think he's a quality player. I'd love him at Arsenal, of course. So you think Stones is better than Diaz? So I think if Stones and Diaz start the same amount of games, I think Stones is better because he naturally gets more bonus points. And that has been proven this season, 11 compared to Diaz's 1. But Ruben Diaz is just a safer pick in general. That's the thing. I'm looking to bring in C defender, so that's why I'm asking. And also, is Ake better than Stones or Diaz? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. What Ake is cheaper. I think they're all good options. They're the most nailed on defenders you can get. But if I had to rank it, I mean, I could be completely wrong, as I've mentioned before, because of Stones' injury problems, and also he's most likely to be rested of the three. But I'd say Stones first, probably Diaz second, Ake third. What I might end up doing, though, is just going for Diaz, just to go for that safe set and forget option, who I think will start every single game. Bench Saka to play March, I'd probably start Saka, but it's not a bad idea. I support Arsenal, and my Argentinian team is Rosario Central. I went to see them last Friday. Great atmosphere, and then my national team you probably know. Burnley leading Middlesbrough 1-0. Their promotion is guaranteed if they win. Yeah, Middlesbrough is a tough game as well, one of the most informed championship teams. What's the food like in Argentina? So it's kind of a mix. There's a lot of meat, let me put it that way. So barbecue is a big thing, un asado, argentino. But yeah, there's a lot of different things. And there's also a lot of delicacies as well, if you can count that towards food, which quite similar to Spain as well. And a lot of food also similar to Italy, because a lot of Italians obviously migrated to Argentina. So it's kind of like a mixture of Italian and also just pure carne, pure meat. Is Thiago Alcantara fit? Yes, he is. I believe he is. The one that isn't, I believe, is Luis Diaz. But everyone else, I think, is available. Salah and all of that. I'm not sure about Jota, but I think he'll also be available, of course. Will Burnley survive next season? Tough to say. I think with their current squad, they've got a chance, but I still think they need more quality. So as things stand, I think they'd finish 16th or below. However, with some good reinforcements, some smart signings, of course they can stay up, and they could even, finish in the top 10. Why not? But I think realistically they'll finish probably 14th or below. And right now, if you're asking me, do they survive, yes or no? I don't think they do, because they need more quality. Isn't Liverpool versus Arsenal historically one of the highest scoring fixtures? Yeah, exactly. And that's why, for most people, I've said to bench Ben White, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and all of these players. Grealish or Mahrez? I mean, I like Mahrez, but he just doesn't start games now in the Premier League, so it's Grealish. I'm not a big fan of Grealish, though, in FPL. So Maddison to KDB, or wait to Foden and buy C defender? I just keep Maddison and buy a C defender, if anything. Maddison to cheap mid so I can do Tony to Haaland. It's not a bad idea, but I honestly think having 5 midfielders is the way to go long term, potentially. Yeah, Zidane's also a good shout, by the way. Zidane and Enrique really that good, or just getting carried by the team? I don't know. I actually think Luis Enrique did a good job with Spain. Let's put it this way. In the Euros, they finished in the semi-finals. They lost to the eventual champions in Italy on penalties. And also with Spain, they don't have the same quality of players as they once did. I know Spain have some really technical players. They're nice on the eye. They play great football, but they don't score enough goals. And Enrique did the best he could with the players he had at his disposal. People leveled at him that he was biased against Real Madrid players, but then look how Madrid, or should I say Spain, are doing now with those Madrid players. It's not a guarantee for success. I think Enrique's a good coach. Is he as good as Guardiola? No, he isn't, but he is a very good coach. And I think he makes his teams play really good football. As for Zidane, yeah, he's obviously a really good coach. I mean, you don't win 3 Champions Leagues in a row being a bad coach. Yes, you could argue different factors, played a part in those Champions League wins, but Zidane is a good coach. Is he as good as, the kind of top 5 I mentioned? I don't think so, but he is a good coach. Out of those two, I actually prefer Enrique for the style of play, but they're quite similar, I'd say. Bring in Haaland or keep Kane. Don't have enough money for Tony to Haaland swap. I'd keep Kane. I don't think so, because Alvarez is just a minute's risk from now until the end of the season. I don't think I'd do that. Sargent, Sonoda, or Guan Yu Zhou. I've had Guan Yu Zhou from the beginning of the season, should I say. I'm happy with him. And actually, yeah, I'm not sure if F1 is going on right now, by the way. The times are just all over the place here. I think qualifying is going to happen today because of the sprint race format. But yeah, from those 3, it'd be Guan Yu Zhou, no doubt about it. But I think in certain race weeks, it could be a bit different, and maybe someone like Sonoda could be the one. But Guan Yu Zhou in general is the best option. Alvarez versus Jesus, non-FPL wise. Alvarez is a better finisher, there's no doubt about it. I think Jesus is a better dribbler. But it's kind of difficult to compare. One's 23, just joined the Premier League. The other one is 26. He turned 26 the other day. I think Jesus is a better player right now, but I think Alvarez has the better potential, and he'll end up being the better player. And I'm not even biased here, because Jesus plays for my club, Alvarez plays for my nation, but that's, I think, the way it will go. So Tony or Danny Ings for Haaland? I would sell Danny Ings. Like I predicted in Gameweek 29, I liked him for that, double. But my issue was, is he going to start both games? And I thought he might just start one and then be benched for the other, and that's what ended up happening. Tony to Haaland now. Madison to Grealish in 31. Early worries. The Bayern fixtures where Grealish can be rested. Can he play Saints Munich, Leicester Munich? He can, but I don't think he will play every single game. I think Grealish will be benched in at least one of them, and it could be in the Premier League. So that's a good question you asked there. I wouldn't go for Grealish personally. Carlos says Kepa, Chilwell, Trippier, Pinnock, Madison, Bruno, Rashford, Matoma, Tony, Watkins, Kane, Estupiñán, McAllister, Shaw en el banco. ¿Qué transfers me sugerís? Gracias, crack. Gracias, Carlos. No sé, porque tu equipo está bastante bien. Lamentablemente. Es muy difícil decir. Kepa, Chilwell. ¿Quién es tu arquero secundario? Eso es lo que quiero saber, porque puede haber un problema con Kepa. Tiene una historia con Lampard y también Chelsea no sé si va a obtener muchas bajas invictas con Lampard como técnico. Creo que van a cambiar a 4 atrás y eso no sé si lo va a hacer bien defensivamente. Así que el arquero puede ser un problema en el futuro. Por ahora lo mantendría Kepa, pero estoy pensando en quién es tu arquero secundario. En este momento no creo que tienes que hacer algo. Tu equipo está bien para esta jornada. Si quieres a Haaland o Haaland, puedes hacer Tony a Haaland, pero no sé cuánto dinero necesitas para hacer ese movimiento. Así que decime, Carlos, si te puedo dar algo más concreto. So you think Arteta and Scaloni is better than Zidane? Well, Scaloni definitely. Arteta, you could argue maybe not because he's only done it for a season in terms of at the highest level. And also Zidane is difficult to compare because he's literally managed the biggest club in the world when he's been a manager. And Arteta's literally taken Arsenal from 8th position and he's now competing them with the best team in the world, arguably, in Manchester City. So, yeah, I can understand if you're a bit skeptical of Arteta, but with Scaloni, I have no doubts he's better than Zidane. How about Bielsa, new manager for Uruguay? I'm from Montevideo originally, now live in the UK. With Bielsa, I mean, he did a really good job with Chile. I'm not going to compare Chile to Uruguay. That'd be disrespectful because Uruguay are one of the biggest nations in world football, historically. But I think he could do something similar there, lay the foundations for the future, and I think he could do a really good job. You'll definitely play better football than you did under Tebas, which won't be difficult to do. But yeah, I think he could be a really good appointment, actually. And Bielsa, not only will he have a good style of play, but I think he'll set the foundations there for long-term success. Hi Dylan, is it worth doing Gabriel, Tony, Alpha, Ake, Haaland for a -4 this week? I answered your question already, Patrick, and yes, it is worth a hit. Yeah, I think it is worth doing that. Taking any hits, I'm doing nothing. I'm rolling the transfer, and I'll probably make 2 free transfers in 31, get Haaland back in then, and also downgrade Chilwell. Thank you, Luke. I'm at 140k, need to get that top 100k finish at least this season, getting Haaland for Tony and going to captain Rashford or Haaland. I think that's very sensible. Maybe the main reason why people are going against Rashford is because of early kickoff, and to be honest, I won't lie to you, that's literally probably one of the main reasons why I might switch in the end, which is quite crazy to say. I have big expectations when watching Alvarez playing for River Plate. Glad he's proven me right. Played well in Man City and winning the World Cup. I like this guy, the new Aguero. Yeah, he's quite similar in play style to Aguero. I'd say Aguero is maybe a bit more agile and maybe a better dribbler per se. But look, Alvarez is young, he can still develop. And Alvarez has already kind of surpassed Aguero in terms of World Cups, in terms of his legacy there. But yeah, look, Alvarez is a quality player. I did the kind of, I swore at him, let's say, the other day when he scored against Liverpool, because literally I woke up, Liverpool are winning 1-0, and then it just went tits up. I was hoping for a Liverpool win there. Gracias, Carlos. Raya, segundo arquero. Está bien, así que no hay un problema. 3.1 millones en el banco. Tendría que hacer 2 cambios con -4 para meter a Haaland. Sí, para mí, dejar tu equipo como está. Y en la jornada 31, como voy a hacer yo, creo, ahí puedes poner a Haaland y puedes hacer otra transferencia. Y sería gratis, no sería un -4. Así que para mí tu equipo está bien para esta jornada. No necesita una transferencia. El -4 no es malo, pero para mí no se necesita. No, está bien. Do you think any nation stands a chance to realistically challenge Argentina and Brazil in South America? I mean, Uruguay, they've got the most Copa Americas alongside Argentina. They're actually, in terms of overall trophies, the second most successful of any nation over Brazil. So Uruguay have a great history. They're always a threat. And I think if they get that managerial point right, I think they could be a force to be reckoned with. They've got some really good quality players as well, like Valverde. Even some underrated players too. So yeah, I think Uruguay. I would have said Ecuador as well. I think under Alfaro they were building something pretty positive. They've got a poor Copa America record, but I think they could have really been, challenging. They got draws against Argentina and Brazil in the qualifiers. Very competitive, young, dynamic team. It's a bit of a shame that they've now got a new manager, and I'm not so sure if it's the right appointment for them. But anyone could really compete in South America. That's the beauty of it. You could say, with the exception of someone like Bolivia, for example. But I'd probably say Uruguay or Uruguay, Colombia, and Ecuador would be the most likely. And I would have put Ecuador at the top of that list, but now with no Alfaro, I'm not so sure. You're not getting Haaland against Southampton. I think he'll start, and I think he could definitely punish me, but it would have to be for a -4 unless I sell Kane, and I just don't think it's worth it. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna observe from a distance right now, out behind my sofa, or just not watch the game and pretend FPL doesn't exist for a few more days. Start Odegaard or Tony. I like Odegaard this week still, but I'd go for Tony. Alvarez finishing is very good in his age, might be better than Haaland. I can see what you mean, because obviously Haaland has a lot of big chances. Alvarez might be more clinical per se, but I'd still give Haaland the edge in finishing. I think Alvarez is a better overall player than Haaland. That's what I would say. I thought my Spanish was quite good until I heard you speak it. Mine isn't good, trust me. For a native speaker, it's kind of basic, basically. Like, my problem with Spanish is that I think a lot about what I have to say. In English, it all just comes out naturally. I'm not even thinking as I'm speaking right now. I could literally just be waffling and, oh, Dylan, do a presentation, and I just waffle, and that's it. I get the job done. In Spanish, I will not be able to do that. Hey, bro, do you think it's wise going about Haaland until Gameweek 33? Wise might not be the word. Look, you can go about him until Gameweek 33 and do well. Yes. It is a risk, though. We know this, and I'm probably going to bring him in very soon. If it's not now, it's probably going to be in Gameweek 31. Is Foden time over? Well, the thing with Foden is that he always has something that kind of gets in his way, and with Guardiola, I'm not sure what happened earlier in the season. He's now currently injured. That's why he's not in the plans right now. As Dave said there, he's still recovering. But I think once Foden is back, Grealish is the more nailed-on option. And I'd say Grealish is actually a better dribbler, better in terms of generating fouls, and also a better playmaker. Foden can be a bit more selfish, but there's no doubt about Foden's talent. No doubt about it. I'm selling Kane for Haaland. Just feel Kane ceiling is about 9, and the upside of Haaland this week is just too tempting. That's completely fair, and I honestly might even end up, contradicting myself and doing that transfer. It's just in terms of Tony, he's the one I'd ideally sell. Keep Harry Kane, but you just can't have everyone. It's as simple as that. What I like about Kane is his sheer consistency, and I'm kind of sick of saying the word, but that's literally the word that pops up when I think about him. Tony to Watkins, yep, I think it's a good transfer. Andre, I think that's really disrespectful. For example, if you're Portuguese, Ecuador did beat Portugal in the last time they faced each other. I know it was a long time ago, and Ecuador, they're not a bad team. I think they were very unlucky in the World Cup. Against Senegal, they probably bottled it a little bit, but against Netherlands, they completely outplayed Netherlands, and that was a pretty good Netherlands side, you could say, under Louis van Gaal. I still don't think Foden can take Grealish's spot if he's fully fit. Well, Grealish is the one that you kind of see as the next most nailed-on attacker other than Haaland, but I don't think he starts every game with the kind of congested fixture schedule. Grealish is insane now. Yeah, but even at Aston Villa, he was, pretty quality, and he was more talismanic. But yeah, I can see what you mean. Fun fact about Leicester, they haven't kept a clean sheet since Gameweek 16, and even when you would say that they're playing against Wolves, the worst team in the Premier League, they would still score. Yeah, the only fixture where I would consider a Leicester defender to start would be Nottingham Forest at home. That is it. And even then, I think Forest would score. Hey Dylan, how are you doing? I'm doing well, Sophia. What about you? Good to see you here once again. Foden replacement. I'm not sure who you have in terms of players, but I still like Brighton midfielders, Man United midfielders, and apart from those, I think I'd probably recommend someone like, I'd say someone like Barnes or Maddison still. But I honestly don't know who you have or don't have already. I still like Arsenal midfielders. I'm not sure if I'd buy them in right now necessarily. Haaland for Gameweek 30? I mean, ideally, yes, but if you have to take a -4 hit, and if you're already kind of happy with your team, it's not completely necessary. Should I replace Isak now? If yes, with who? I'd only replace Isak with someone like Watkins, Harry Kane, or Haaland. Apart from that, I wouldn't be in a rush to sell Isak. One free transfer. Should I get Watkins in for Tony this week and get Haaland in next week for Havertz, or take a -4 and get them both? That's a good question. What I would do is get Watkins in for Tony this week and then get Haaland in next week. Alvarez is a really good young player or lad. I hope he'll get more playing time, but there's Haaland. I mean, he knows what he signed up for. I think he signed a contract extension literally last week. So yeah, look, he's going to develop anyway under Pep. He'll become a better player, but he'll get plenty of game time at Argentina, so not to worry. I think Foden starts in the right side instead of Mahrez, Grealish on the left. Yeah, no, that is true. It's just in terms of who's the more nailed-on player, it'd be Grealish. As an Arsenal fan, which front three do you predict to start Anfield? That's a great question. Saka will start, I think. Martinelli, and then it's between Trossard or Jesus. I think it will be Gabriel Jesus. That is my prediction. Jesus has 4 goals in 6 games against Liverpool, but Trossard also scored a hat-trick the last time he was at Anfield. So you could go for either one and you'll probably be fine. And also, whoever you bring off the bench could make a huge impact and could change the game. So, yeah, I think Jesus will start over Trossard and he'll be benched. Short to Mings. It's a good transfer for Gameweek 30, not necessarily for the long term. By the way, thank you, Ross, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, sure thing. I have Raya, Kepa, Chilwell, Trippier, Botman, Stupinian, Shaw, March, Matoma, Rashford, Fernandes, Madison, Kane, Tony, Watkins. To sell Tony to get Haaland, I need 1.2 million. Who else could I take out? That's a really good question. I mean, I'm in a similar position to you, mate, Ross. And what I'm looking to do is downgrade Chilwell. So when I'm looking at your team, let's assume, for example, with Chelsea, Kepa keeps his spot. That's fine. He could be your keeper until the end of the season with Raya. That's not an issue. Then, in that case, I would downgrade Chilwell. And you could do something like Chilwell down to, let's say, which defender would I go for? Because you need 1.2 million. That's the problem. Zuma would be fine. Even Mings, I think this week Ross would be good. So yeah, what I would do probably in your situation, if you are looking to make the transfers now, if you really want Haaland this week, I would downgrade Chilwell to Tyrone Mings, and I'd keep it at that. I think that could be a good move for you. So yeah, I think Chilwell's the one that I look to downgrade. I keep Fernandes because Casemiro is going to be back next week. Eriksen's back in the squad this week. So yeah, that's what I do. I wouldn't say it's insane. I watch a lot of football. I wouldn't say it's insane though, but I appreciate it, Tio. Thank you very much. Dylan, can't afford Haaland, one move, Chilwell to White or Shaw to Tarkowski? That's a good question. I'd rather do Chilwell to White. Despite Arsenal having some tough fixtures, they can still keep some clean sheets against West Ham away, Southampton at home, and you could even say, even a fixture like Chelsea at home or Newcastle away, I wouldn't completely rule out a clean sheet in those games. So yeah, I'd rather have White than Tarkowski, let's put it that way, and Shaw should be back fairly soon. So I'd sell Chilwell. So Grealish or Almiron? I mean, I think Grealish is the better player. Almiron's had the better season in terms of numbers, but Grealish is the better player. And I think since the World Cup, he's been a clear victor. I don't hope you're doing well. Botman or Mings? This week, Mings, definitely. And I'm doing well, and hopefully you're doing well too. I'm wildcarding in 33, so I guess that sets me up for double Gameweek 34, so free at 32? Yeah, I think that you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. How would Newcastle? How would Ronaldo fit in Newcastle? Because in his release clause, he can go there if Newcastle finish top 4. I think that's already been proven wrong. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's factual. So yeah, I wouldn't look into that. If, let's say, in the very unlikely scenario where that was the case, I mean, how would he fit in? I mean, just say goodbye to Wilson and Isak's minutes, at least for the short term. Tempted with Chelsea players. I'd actually be more tempted by the attackers now rather than the defenders. I'm a bit concerned about Chilwell and Kepa, but it could be a managerial bounce. It could be a positive appointment until the end of the season. I'm just a bit wary about it. Why didn't you buy Haaland? Because it would require -4 hit if I want to sell Tony or selling Kane. And I'm quite happy to wait until Gameweek 31 potentially. But look, I'm not going to completely rule out Haaland this week. I could end up doing Kane to Haaland and captaining him. I'm not going to deny that. But right now, the most likely scenario for me is to roll. What do you think of Rashford's crazy home form versus Haaland average away form? Yeah, I mean, that's why if I had both of them, my preference would still be of Rashford. My main concern with Rashford, funnily enough, apart from United not scoring enough goals recently, is the fact that they have an early kickoff. Oh no, Lemon. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to go into... Yeah, let's just stick to FPL. I'm so annoyed. Gameweek 29, I was 50-50 between Ings and Wilson. I still went up from 1.1 million to 750k, but the green arrow would have been a lot better. Yeah, no, I understand that. You know, even if you did well this week and got a green arrow, these 50-50 decisions that go against you, it can be very frustrating. I have Shaw right now. Should I transfer him to Stones or Chelsea win back? I'd keep Shaw and just start whoever else you have there, mate. Long term, I think Shaw is a better choice than the Chelsea or Man City defenders. Have 6 million in the bank. Any top picks to bring in? I have Haaland and Kane. If you're talking about forwards, I'd probably go for Brennan Johnson. If I have 10 players for Gameweek 32, what's the best Gameweek to free in then? Maybe 34 in your case, or you're looking at look, 1 week that is kind of always on the radar in terms of free hit is Gameweek 38 because you can see some rotation. You know, some teams have already secured their objective and they start to go a bit different. So yeah, apart from 34, maybe 38 could be another one. For some Villa assets, apart from Watkins, who's kind of a no-brainer, I'd say Emi Martinez is a good goalkeeper and Tyrone Mings at the back. Apart from those, I don't think I'd go for anyone else, but those are some pretty good choices. The best captaincy options, in my opinion, are Rashford, Haaland, and Watkins in that order. Kane and Watkins, or Kane and Haaland, or Haaland and Watkins. Ideally, it would be Kane and Haaland, but Watkins offers tremendous value right now. And this week, I think Watkins will probably outscore Kane if we're looking at the fixture. Saint-Maximin is way better than Grealish. No, not in my opinion. Saint-Maximin, for me, is very wasteful. You know, he's a very good dribbler. You know, fantastic. On his day, he's electric, but I think Grealish is he's superior in terms of his technical ability, and he makes the better decision most of the time. What I don't like about Grealish is his finishing. That is awful. Replace Shaw or bring in Haaland. Bring in Haaland, I'd say. And I'd bring him in for Tony there. Do you think Sanchez should join a new club? Yeah, I mean, at Dortmund, he was one of the most highly sought out after, wingers and prospects in world football. It just hasn't gone right for him. I think United was the wrong move. I was even saying that when it happened. But I still thought he'd do a bit better than this, to be fair. Even with my doubts about him, I'm a bit surprised by what's happened. Start my triple Brighton mid over Bruno this week. I'd start Bruno over one of them, probably March. It can backfire. You could end up benching your high scoring Brighton midfielder, but that's what I do. Yeah, that is true, but even then, for me, Grealish is the better option, or the better player, should I say. Start Harrison or Odegaard. I'd go for Harrison. United look terrible for goals, that is true. And that's one of the main cons behind captaining Rashford, alongside the fact that he's obviously having the early kickoff. Sell Luke Shaw for somebody else, or sell Gakpo for a different midfielder. I'd keep Shaw if you can, and with Gakpo, it's tough to sell because he has the fixture in 32, which is really good, and a double in 34. But I'd probably rather sell Gakpo from those. Even Shaw's out now, United will have no time to attack. I still think United will score probably 2 goals against Everton, and that could be enough for Rashford to get a mega haul. But yeah, I understand your reservations about Rashford captain. I don't think this is a simple captaincy option this week. It's not a standout. Grealish, Harrison, or Barnes? This week, I'd say Harrison. Long term, my favourite might actually be Barnes, but that's a tough one. March Chilwell replacement, 6.9 million in the bank. I'd keep March if you can, but if you don't have a free hit there, Kimpachi, then I'd go to... Yeah, you can't go for Salah, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. But I'd probably look to sell Chilwell. So what I'd look to do is something like Chilwell downgraded to, let's say, for example, Mings if you don't have a free hit. And if you do have a free hit, maybe a Stupinian, and then you can upgrade March, maybe to Salah. And if you don't have the funds, then I'd probably go towards... I'd probably still consider an Arsenal midfielder. I'd still rather go for them than Bowen, for example. Wyatt wildcard in 33, 34 seems better for me, as it will be after the City-Arsenal match. The gap is too big and City are still in UCL. Players like Haaland can be rested more. Look, you can do that as well. There's no doubt about it. It's just in Gameweek 32. So let's assume you use the free hit, for example. Obviously, I'm not sure if that's going to be the case for you there, but you only have one free transfer in Gameweek 33, and that might not be enough to put out some fires that you may end up having by that time period. Of course, it's all hypothetical, and for some people, it might be better to wildcard in 34. There's no doubt about it. But for most people, or for some at least, I think 33 is a pretty decent time. I don't really see any big issues with it, even with Arsenal and City facing each other, because ideally or realistically, anyone in Gameweek 34, you're not going to go for many Arsenal players anyway on the wildcard. Hi, Mings or Botman? I'd go for Mings this week. Wayne Rooney as England manager in the near future? Not so sure. I mean, he did a decent job at Derby, but I mean, even then, I'm not so sure if he has the pedigree or the managerial prowess to go to be the England manager. Keep Tony and roll the transfer, get Haaland from now. I mean, I'm probably keeping Tony, but I think either option is fine. If you can get Haaland for free, I'd probably do it. But if it's for a -4, I'd probably just keep Tony. That's just the way I'd go about it. Thank you, chat sport. Tony out for Haaland makes sense. Yeah, it does, but I just don't have enough money. I'm 0.1 million off. So because of that, I'm just happy to keep for now. The early kickoff curse is real. Yeah, I'm aware of it, and that's why I might end up changing the captain for that reason alone. What level do you think Gakpo is on? Sane? Sancho? Tough. I mean, they're all a bit different players. Sane is the most explosive, you could argue, of the lot, and the best dribbler. I mean, Sancho in his day was a great dribbler, by the way. Good skills, very good playmaker as well, a lot of assists. Say Maximan is pure pace and dribbling, I'd say. Gakpo is more of a goals and assist player, which Sancho used to be at Dortmund as well, to be fair. So I think Gakpo is the most similar to Sancho. Would I say he's on the same level? I'm not so sure because Sancho hasn't shown his level for quite some time now. Who do I keep in my 11 for sure? Ricardo Pereira or Zuma? Probably Zuma, but neither a big or a good defense, really. Taking out second Brentford defender, should I replace him with City? Yeah, I think a City defender's fine. If not, you could also consider a few others. I think, yeah, City defender is what I'd mainly look to buy in right now. Best cheap midfielder under 6 million for next 3 game weeks. There's not going to be much. You know, I'm happy to keep Mitoma, McAllister, March, really, in your situation. One of those 3 is completely fine. Apart from those 3, I mean, I'm not really a big fan of the rest of the midfielders for the next 3 game weeks. Will Lukaku go to a team like Bayern if Chelsea Inter does not want him? I mean, it's a possibility, but I don't think so. Bayern will not spend for Lukaku. I mean, with Bayern right now, they can just play Marnie up front. They've got Choupo-Moting at the moment who's doing well, but I think they'll just go for another profile striker. Harry Kane's more likely, I think, to go buy him. But with Harry Kane, you also get the impression he wants to stay in the Premier League to break the records. Thoughts on Chelsea on the Lampard? I think they'll change to a back 4. I think they'll be worse defensively, but score more goals and create more chances. That's the way I think it will pan out for them. Alba, I'm not so sure. And either way, his level's dropped. I know last season he did well for Barcelona, but I don't think... I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't think he's cut out for the Premier League anymore. If you could bring Haaland, would you captain him? I would consider it, especially if I go against the Rashford captaincy because of the early kickoff shenanigans. But I'm also considering Watkins. You know, why not? I think one of those three, would definitely be my captain. Diego Simeone to Chelsea. I mean, he's very similar to the likes of Conte and Mourinho in terms of defensive play style, but I don't think so. I think he'll stay at Atletico. Which City defender? Stones is my favourite because of bonus points, but he's also the least nailed, you could argue, or the most injury prone compared to Ake and Ruben Dias. So if you just want someone nailed, go for Ruben Dias. Don't overthinking it. But I think Stones has the highest ceiling. Bench Mitoma or McAllister? I'd bench McAllister, but the stat I mentioned earlier in terms of Spurs conceding a lot of chances down the middle bodes well for McAllister and Ferguson. Most nailed City defender, Ruben Dias, in my opinion. He started pretty much every single game since he's returned from injury. My third defender is either Ben Mee or Botman. I just go for Botman. I don't think you need to take a -4. Kind of regret changing my captain from Watkins to March, tempted by possible differential points. Yeah, Watkins' captain would have been amazing, by the way, last week. Let's not even talk about that. Rafael Leao versus Gakpo. I think Leao is the better player. But then again, I think Gakpo at PSV, you know, the rate he was going, scoring or assisting in every single game pretty much, he was very impressive. But I think Leao was probably the better player. I have Raya, Kepa, sorry, Jesus, hiccups. Trippier, Shaw, Chilwell, Botman, Stupinian, Rashford, Saka, Bruno, March, Mitoma, Kane, Tony, Watkins, 1 free transfer, 2.6 million in the bank, doing Haaland to Tony, but to afford that I need 1.7 million. I think one of the best ways to find that money is to downgrade one of Chilwell or Bruno, and I'd rather downgrade Chilwell. The problem is you don't have many options to downgrade to. Because even someone like Zuma or Mings, I think it might just be a little bit over your price threshold. And I'm guessing you don't want to sell Harry Kane. So yeah, probably Chilwell downgraded to a cheaper defender. I think that's probably the way to go. But if not, in your situation, it might just be best to do Kane to Haaland if you really want him. Sell Tony or Havertz this week? I'd sell Havertz, personally. Havertz to Haaland and bench March, or bench Havertz and play March? I do Havertz to Haaland, yeah. I don't have my free hit, and I'm planning to have 9 players in blank game of Fate too, so I'm just hoping that my captain will do me a favour. Yeah, if you've got 9 of the kind of key assets that week, you're fine. I don't think it's a big deal. For some Bellingham situation, I don't think Arsenal will go for him. I think he'll go to one of Madrid. Man City or Liverpool. Would you take or Rice from the Premier League? I think Rice is more realistic for Arsenal there. Would you take Zuma out for Diaz for a hit? I don't think I'd do it for a hit though, because even if Diaz keeps a clean sheet, you'll probably just get 6, maybe 7 points maximum. So you're not really gaining too much, assuming Zuma does concede. So I just keep Zuma. If Ruben Diaz is the best defender, wouldn't it be logical that he wants him for Bayern, so he rests that game week? It's possible, but in my opinion, Diaz is kind of the least injury prone or less injury prone compared to Stones. So yeah, it's just in my opinion, looking at how things have gone, the pattern since he has returned from injury, I think Ruben Diaz is the safest pick in general, not just in game week 30 or 31, but also long term. 3 and 32 now. I watched it today. Which team should we target besides Paul and Arsenal? I mean, I'm not so sure. I think it's mainly a mixture of other teams rather than kind of really honing in on certain teams. I don't think it's like that, but I'd go for a mixture of Brentford and Villa players, despite them facing each other. Yeah, I think it's just a mixture. It's not really focusing on others. It'd just be 1 or 2 maximum of other teams. Tony and Shaw to Alex Moreno and Haaland for -4. I wouldn't sell Shaw if you can. But if that's your only way of doing Tony to Haaland, yeah, it's a decent hit, but I don't think I'd do it. Would you take a hit to get Trippier in, or is it too sideways? No. Trippier's ceiling is there to be witnessed all season. He's got so much attacking potential and bonus points potential. Hi, Dylan. Benjamin Tomo or Fernandes? If that's Enzo Fernandez, then I'm definitely benching him. If it's Bruno Fernandes, probably still bench him and start Matoma, but it'd be a bit closer. Now that I think about it, Haaland Sancho was like what Haaland, sorry, is like what Osimhen, Kravitz, Shelia is now. Yeah, it's very similar. It is very similar. Tony to Haaland and Fernandes to McAllister for a -4. Already have 2 Brighton mids. I mean, it's a good hit. I think it's decent, but I think you might end up regretting Bruno or selling Bruno in Game Weeks 31 onwards. Haaland 120% effective ownership tomorrow. Not sure about 120%, but I think it'll definitely be over 100%. Same goes for Rashford. Do you think that starting me might be better than Botman? Maybe, but it's a tricky one. I'll be honest, it's a really tricky one. And I might reconsider that, but yeah, I think I'm going to go for Botman. Don't know which one to start, March or Solanke. Probably March, yeah. Darwin to Watkins, yeah, I would do it. Should I sell Tony and get Haaland or go for Grealish in midfield, but I already got March, Rashford, Matoma, Saka, I'm confused. Yeah, I'd sell Tony to Haaland. I wouldn't go for Grealish, I'd just go for Haaland. Botman or Stupinian, says Michael. To start this week, Botman. Yeah, Shaw is injured, we've covered it. I'm going with Rashford captain, Dylan. I think Haaland will only get 60, still could do very well. Yeah, that's fair. I also think he'll get 60, 70 minutes. But my problem with United and Rashford is the fact that they don't score enough goals recently in the Premier League, and they also have the early kickoff, which puts me off a bit. Play Benrahma or Pinnock? Probably Pinnock. Stones in, Botman out for a hit? No, I don't think it's worth a hit. If anything, just save that transfer for Game Week 31 or afterwards. So thank you to everyone for tuning in today. It's been a blast talking to you. If you've got any more questions or anything else that you want me to answer, then let me know down in the comment section below, and also in the Twitter, Instagram, DMs, and also, messaging me publicly if you want. And also there's a Discord server, the link's on the description below. So be sure to do all of that. And how long have we been going on for? 1 hour 30. So we have been going on for quite a while. Be sure to show the support to the channel, smashing the like button, subscribing if you're new. Let's try to get this stream to over 100 likes. That'd be massively appreciated. It helps out in the algorithm. Just going to check where we are currently. Yeah, we're 32 likes away from 100, so let's try to rack these up. We've got over 130 people watching, so we can definitely do that. And of course, like I said, ideally I would do this stream tomorrow in the early hours of the UK. I'm just not able to do so on holiday for the next 2 weeks at least. But the plan is to do a UCL Fantasy stream at the normal time on Tuesday. So I'll keep you guys updated, and girls, of course, if anything changes, but that is the plan. I'm going to try to go for a few more questions before wrapping up. Who should I sell between Bruno, Shaw for Haaland, -4? It'd be Shaw because he's missing out this week. And with Bruno, I think he could do really well once Casemiro and Eriksen are back, which is going to be in Game Week 31. Hey, Dylan, just got here. Thoughts on Shaw? With Shaw, I think in most cases you'd rather keep. And a differential for Chile, maybe John Stones. Which teams do you feel will get relegated this year in the Premier League? I mean, West Ham and Leicester are in big trouble. I mean, I haven't mentioned them before, but they honestly, you have to say, they're very likely to go down. I'd say Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Southampton. I think that's the bottom three. Do you think Isak is nailed? I wouldn't say he's nailed, as we saw against West Ham. I think there could be a bit of rotation from time to time. Should I transfer Mings? -4 Tarkovsky clean sheet Mings. Yeah, but even then, you'd probably just gain 2 points. That's the problem. But Mings could be decent beyond. He's not that great, I think, from Gameweeks 31 to 38, but yeah, it's just not ideal, I think, to take a hit for a defender. Because even then, wouldn't surprise me if Aston Villa conceded. Tony to Haaland and Fernandes to McAllister for a -4. Already have 2 Brian mids. Yeah, that's fair. I said this already earlier before. Like I said, though, you could regret selling Fernandes. Is Kep in danger? Yeah, I think so, but I'm going to try trust Lampard. He said that everyone's kind of operating on a clean slate. Would you take out Henry for Trent? If you don't have a 3 and 32 Mustafa, yes. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth it. Would you go for Isak or Wilson? Probably neither at this point. I'd just rather go elsewhere. Watkins, Haaland, and Kane if you can. Or have just 2 forwards and a cheap forward as your third option. Hola Esteban, ¿vas a comprar a Haaland esta semana o vas a guardar la transferencia? Es lo que voy a hacer. Voy a guardarlo, creo. Si hago la transferencia va a ser más tarde. Si lo pongo a pensar mucho y no quiero ir en la jornada 30 sin Haaland, ahí lo voy a hacer. Pero en este momento creo que voy a guardarlo y lo voy a esperar hasta la jornada 31. Thank you, Sophia. I appreciate it. Okay, Sophia, sorry, I'll try to do it. Skygo says, thank you, Dylan. Hit the thumbs up before you go, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tesla, as well. Welcome, Javid. Who'd you captain from Haaland and Rashford? Probably Rashford, but I am reconsidering it. Take care, Sophia, as well. Me to Ake or Stones? I prefer Stones, but Ake is probably a bit more nailed on and less injury prone. Bench one from Isak, McAllister, and Matoma. Probably Isak. Thank you, Yash. Enjoy the Easter holidays as well. Hey, Dylan, just need your thoughts. Haaland March in for Tony Madison -4. Yeah, I think it's worth it. I'd do it for a -4. But I'd probably rather go for McAllister at this moment in time. Hey, Dylan, now that I think about it, maybe 9 players -4 and 32, wildcard 33, and 3 at 37 to maximize the 3 perhaps. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. But I think if you wildcard in 33, you could already kind of get a lot of the key assets that double in 37. One free transfer and 2.6 million. Doing Haaland to Tony, but to afford that I need 1.7 million. Yeah, Dawn, I did answer this question already. And like I said, downgrading Shaw to a defender is probably what I would do. Otherwise, your other option is to downgrade one of Bruno or Kane. And if it is Harry Kane, I mean, you don't need to do it actually. If it's just, Kane to Haaland, that'll be fine. You can just keep Tony for another week. And eventually you could downgrade that position to give you that money in the bank and that flexibility if you really want to keep Chilwell. But yeah, if it was me, I'd probably downgrade Chilwell, but I'm not a big fan of those at 4.2 million and below in the defense. Thank you, Elliot. Is it true that Argentina is the best me in the world? I think so. I haven't tried the me in every single country, so I can't say that, definitively, but I think it is, yeah. All the best, Dylan. Love your content. Thank you, Mustafa. And gracias, Esteban. Un placer. Thank you, Javid. And I appreciate that. Is Alvarez a good punt? The thing is with Alvarez, he could start alongside Haaland, but even if Haaland's benched, Alvarez could be benched. You just know how Pep is. But in my prediction, I think Alvarez doesn't start, and I think Haaland does. So that is enough to put me off. Now, I could be wrong, and if Alvarez starts, he could do extremely well against Southampton. But yeah, because of my prediction, my personal prediction, I wouldn't go for him myself. The players' kits is... I've been asked this question so many times. I mean, I'm not even sure why it's a big thing, but it's literally just the Chrome extension. Just type in FPL Away Kits Chrome extension on Google, and you can add it to your browser, like Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox. And I think also Brave. Grealish or Madison for the long term? I mean, you could argue it's Grealish at the moment, but I'm not a big fan of him FPL-wise. Yeah, I think so. I think... this definitely in Gameweek 30. Long term, it's a bit closer and it could go either way, but probably McAllister. He's on penalties as well, and that does play a big part too. But thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this stream to over 100 likes and also trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. We're getting ever closer, and it's very much thanks to you. And also be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. Check the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. If you've got any more questions, like I said, leave them in the comment section of this video. Also put them in the Discord server on Twitter and Instagram. I'll try to get for as many questions as possible on there as well. But it's been a pleasure talking to you for almost the past 2 hours here on a sunny evening here, or sunny evening now here in Argentina. Might not be the same in the UK, of course, but yeah, more content headed your way for FPL and UCL Fantasy. Stay tuned for that. That is the plan. Enjoy FPL, enjoy the football. I'll try to give you any updates if I do end up changing my team, especially for channel members and patrons, so keep an eye out for that. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 30 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.